So the first thing to talk about is a little bit of phrasing and dynamic contrast in this first section of the etude. And what I mean is I like to add a little bit of a crescendo in at bar 2 so that there's a little bit of a swell to that G. Anytime you have a long note in swing music, you should shape it somehow, and I like to sting, especially if there's an accent on it, sting and come up a little bit, okay? So for measure 1, I might sting the first note slightly, crescendo a little bit, sting that F on the end of 4, crescendo a little bit all the way into the G at the end of that measure. Let me go ahead and demonstrate that for you. So there's a little bit of growth in that F that gives a tune a little bit more life and a little bit more swing. Okay? Notice on the eighth notes, the swing eighth notes, I'm not playing staccato, I'm playing legato. And that's very important. Okay, I have a lot of students come in that play with a very staccato attack, and this is the result. Kind of ricky-ticky, okay? But if you play legato, you can hear that swing feel better. Okay, it has a little bit more of a swing and feel to it. The other thing is we want to, of course, make sure that we work on that swing eighth note feel so that we're not rushing any of the syncopations. Okay, and what I mean by that is the eighth note at the end of bar 1 tends to be rushed if you're not really feeling that do ba do ba do ba do ba da. Okay, so what we might end up hearing if you're not subdividing is this. Notice how that syncopation rushes because I'm putting it on where the end of 4 usually is. If I'm subdividing, I'd feel do-ba-da-do-ba-da-do-ba-do-da, right? Do-ba-da-boo-da, okay? And something I'd recommend doing is singing through this. Maybe set your metronome to triplets. So we hear this. Do-ba-do-da, do-ba-do-da. And in doing it this way, what happens is you start to internalize that feel of swinging eighth notes, okay? It's very important that we always hold those anticipations till the end of the swing pattern, okay? The next thing on bar 3, we have that same sting, do-ba-do-da-bo-da-da, okay? Make sure that you do a little bit of swell through that long note, and then the 2 marcato notes should be fat, not necessarily short, but separated and fat. So do ba do da boo dot dot. Okay, I like to think dot dot when I play those types of notes. I'll demonstrate. So instead of this, okay, we don't want short, we want fat. Okay, so they have a little bit of meat to them. Okay, next thing, on bar 6, on the end of beat 3, I would put a slight accent and I would play the D right after that E flat in flat 4th position so that you get that ba-doo-dat, instead of ba-doo-dat. Okay, and I'll show you what I mean. Here's the first way where I put D in the stock 1st position. Okay, it's kind of clunky, but if I put it in 4th, I can do a little bit of a legato swing smear to it, and it sounds a little hipper. Okay, so it sounds a little softer and a little more swinging with that D in 4. Okay, the next thing I do is on bar 8, we have that syncopation on the end of beat 2 on the E natural. I'll bring that out with an accent. Okay, let's go ahead and let me demonstrate that. So here's without the accent. Kind of boring. Let's bring out that syncopation. 1. Bounces a little bit more with the syncopation accented slightly. The next section from 9 to 11, we have a hemiola figure, and what I mean by that is we have sort of a 3 figure over a 4 feel. Okay, so we have ba do da ba do da ba do da ba do da. Okay, and throughout this figure, I like to add in a little bit of crescendo all the way from the beginning to the end. So I'd like to come down to mezzo piano for the beginning of this figure, and crescendo all the way to forte for the end. Okay, let me demonstrate that for you. Okay, so it's a little bit more impactful if, again, you're building the line somehow musically shaping it. Okay? On bar 12, I like to do a slight decrescendo and then a big crescendo into that F sharp. So what I mean is, I like to feel, instead of just ba-doo, 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 dat, I like to feel ba-doo, 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 dat, ba-doo, 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 dat. Okay, and I'll show you what I mean. Here's without the crescendo. Okay, here's with the decrescendo and the crescendo. Ready? Here. Okay, so it has a little bit more life. And this is the type of shaping that would be typical on a swing line like this. Okay? All right, the next thing to talk about is the anticipation into bar 14 on the long held F sharp. Okay? First things first, F sharp is in a sharp third position. So you want to make sure that you're truly adjusting that in to a sharp third so that it's in tune. The next thing, on a long note like this, I like to use a forte piano so that we get a drastic build and you really hear that accent at the beginning of the note. And this is also a wonderful opportunity for you to show the people that you're auditioning for that you've thought about cutoffs. Cutoffs are equally as important as the articulations or beginnings to notes. Okay? So, that being said, I like to cut off hard on beat 4. And usually in music, this is indicated with a -4. So what I would play is ba-doo, 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 dat, dat, dat. Okay, right off on beat 4. I'll show you what I mean. I'll play from the anticipation to 13 all the way through the end of 14. Listen for that cutoff. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay, just razor sharp cutoff, so there's no doubt. The next lick has 2 triplet figures. The second triplet figure that occurs on beat 3, I like to put a little accent so that we hear ba-ba-doo-da-doo-doo-da, da-da. Okay, ba-ba-doo-da-doo-doo-da. So there's a little shape to that figure. Also, I like to do a hip little quick crescendo through the first part of 16. So what that sound is like is, instead of just da ba da ba ba da boo da ba ba, it sounds like ba ba do da do do da. Notice how there's a da da da, short forte piano crescendo there. Gives it a little bit more life and a little bit more swing. Let me demonstrate that. Here's without. Okay, here's with. Okay. As we get into this section from bar 17 to bar 19, we have an opportunity to play a 4th position or flat 4th D. And the reason we do that is to get more of that embellishment sound. We don't want to hear a really tonguey triplet CDC. We don't want to hear this. Right? Even legato has a little bit too much definition, doesn't sound as much like an embellishment. But if we break out to 4th position on the slide and back into 3rd position, sounds a little bit more like an embellishment, okay, which you would hear from a valve player or a key player, okay? And one way I would work on that is a slow trill from C to D. And this is a great exercise, by the way, to work on your embouchure. It helps strengthen your embouchure, so I'll demonstrate that. Okay, great exercises for building up the endurance and to work on your flexibility. All right, the next thing is at the end of bar 21, the anticipation of bar 22. You got it. Again, I would do a slight forte piano crescendo. So, boo doo doo da 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 doo da da. On 24, I like to put a slight crescendo and decrescendo in there. So it's boo doo da da, so that you lead to that accent. Okay, I'll show you without that little bit of dynamic shaping. Okay, kind of lifeless, but let's go ahead and add a little bit of dynamic to it. Okay, so we're really bringing out that second F. Okay, the next thing, in bar 26, you can actually use some alternate syllables to make this figure swing a little bit better. So in 26, I would say da da doo da 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 doo da da doo da, and what that does is it really brings out that phrasing that you want to hear on a figure like this on a swing chart. I'll demonstrate without the doo da doo da, and then I'll try it with, so you can hear the difference. Okay, here's with the da doo da, and what it does is it brings down that second note and brings out the syncopation. Okay, da doo da makes it a little more hip and swinging. So we get to bar 29, and we have a long held note with the sforzando, pianissimo, crescendo, all the way to fortissimo. What I would caution you to do is not only drop way down to pianissimo, but wait all the way into bar 30 until you start crescendoing. Make it really dramatic. I'll show you what it sounds like with an immediate crescendo and then with that dramatic crescendo where you wait. Okay, here's with an immediate crescendo. Okay, here's when you wait just a little bit. Okay, and you'll notice that I'm cutting off that long note right on beat 1 with a very hard cutoff. Okay, this is another chance for you to really show the people listening to your audition etude that you've thought about the ends of notes as well as the beginnings of notes. The last thing I'd like to point out to you is that in bar 31 we have a subito mezzo piano followed by a subito forte. So you really want to bring out these dynamics. I'm going to go ahead and play from 28 through the end, and I want you to listen for all those dynamic contrasts. Okay? All right, and I hope that helps you prepare for the swing part of the audition.